Hello and welcome to Inside the Mind of, a podcast where I dive deeper into the minds of some of my favorite people and people who inspire me in the podcasting wrestling community. Joining me today, he is the host of the Angle podcast, interviewer extraordinaire, Joey Karni. How are you doing?
How are you? I'm doing well. Appreciate you having me on.
Of course, like I just told you before, I've been waiting to get you on, and I'm happy we can finally make this happen.
Awesome. I told you before too. I've seen so many episodes, and it's a pleasure to watch, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, I appreciate it. I always tell people this is kind of like my baby. Like my podcast is fun and all, like my weekly show, but like interviewing people is something I've always wanted to do. So when people say they like this show, I'm like, oh thank God. That makes me happy. But
Yeah.
we're just gonna dive right in. So how did you get your start into podcasting?
So I knew I wanted to do something with wrestling related. I wasn't sure what that was. This is at the beginning, right before the beginning of the pandemic, and I saw there was a rise of podcasting and radio, I guess radio activity, you could say,
Mm-hmm.
on social media, and I figured a way how I could combine both. Obviously start a wrestling podcast, but I didn't know anything about it. I bought like the cheapest microphone on Amazon and just YouTube some stuff. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's a very common theme is the pandemic. It,
Yeah.
that's when 90% of people started. The occasional people were like, "Oh, you guys just started pandemic. We've been going 2 years since like before that." Uh, and it that's you bring up like the cheapest mic and everything. That you don't need to have like the best equipment to do this.
Nope. It's a hack that I learned along the way.
I mean,
That's what I can say.
the mic is Amazon. I bought the camera off Amazon. The mic stand was from my old podcast that it
Yep.
was gifted to me, and I still use. That's all
As
it
long
takes.
as you have, and that's a thing with a lot of people too. Like when I've been asked a bunch of times, like, how do you start a podcast? Like, what should I do? And I say, like, don't break the bank because I started, and I know a lot of other people have also started with very, very like not cheap, but like minimal material. You don't
Yeah.
need you need a microphone in if you're gonna do online or on camera stuff, a cheap webcam. My webcam, the one I'm using right now, I think I got for $60 at Target. And
See,
I've been using it my entire time. So
it's a nice
it's the
webcam.
quality of your content itself, not the quality of the style that you do it.
You know what? I like that. I agree. It is like yeah, my webcam was like $30 on Amazon. My mic was like $30 on Amazon. It,
Gets
it
the job done.
exactly. They get the job done.
Yeah.
People aren't going to be criticizing your camera and your mic. If they are, then they got other things they got to worry about themselves. But
And as you grow and you whatever happens, then you could start investing more into the equipment if that's the route you want to go. But to begin, I wouldn't do it.
oh, 100%. Like yeah, you don't need yeah, you grow as you grow.
Exactly.
So you have had quite a lot of memorable people on your show. I said interview extraordinaire for a reason. You are one of the only people I know who get like the bigger names, which is something I aspire to get eventually, but we'll get there. But so, of all of the people you have had on, do you have any favorites that you've done?
I do. There's two that really stand out to me. One being Rob Van Dam, RVD. That was really my biggest. That was my first big name that my family knew. My family, they don't know anything about wrestling. They know of wrestling because of me.
Yeah.
And when I said I was interviewing Rob Van Dam, my dad's eyes lit up. So that's kind of the moment for me. I was like, ah, oh, now they get it. Um, and he was just such a cool dude to interview. Um, so that was like my first big one. That's a one memorable one.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite one, I think, and I've interviewed her a few times already, Mickey James. She is the coolest, like most personable person. She remembered who I was, and it had been almost a year since the first time I interviewed her, and just an awesome person, and that's probably my second favorite.
I I love that for people who don't even like watch wrestling or really know about it, like your family, you said, and they knew who RVD was and they got so excited for you. Like
Yeah.
that's what it's about. That really like getting people excited about it. And Mickey James, I've heard from quite a few people that she's fantastic to work with,
Yeah.
interview. It's a dream. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But like with all of these people that you have to interview and would like to interview, have there been any like unexpected moments that happen when you're interviewing them? Like something that kind of they say that catches you off guard and you kind of have to like steer your way back on track? Anything like that?
I've had interviews where not many thing luckily. I've had one or two where it was very hard to get answers out of the people, out of the guests, and they would give like kind of yes or no questions, and were very just vague with the way that they spoke, and I had to like the phrases beat the answers out of them, but kind of like answer my own question with giving them very little room to respond because they weren't doing so, and those are kind of difficult to do. Um, and then I've had interviews where I just I don't know. They one thing specifically I can recall. I was interviewing DDP Diamond Dallas Page, and I had just wanted to start getting into yoga, and it was around the time that I interviewed him, so it just made sense to talk to him a little bit about that. And I read to him by doing my research on him. I found that he really likes when people give a review on his products or his DDP yoga.
Yeah.
So I read a few to him on there, and one of those specifically was one that I had written, um, just to kind of get like an emotional moment, get some feedback,
Yeah.
and of course, he got a little emotional. We both did actually, and he ended up giving me the whole program, mat, all the products for free. He sent me DDPY, a mat, all these armbands for blood restriction, and all these different things. And he told me he's like, listen, like call me in like 90 days, and we'll follow up, and we'll do follow up pictures and different things like that. And it became like I don't know. It was just it took a mind of its own. It really went a completely different way. And I was at the end of the interview, and I was not expecting that at all. And I still do it to this day. He gave me the app with all of the courses. I didn't have to pay for a thing. I think the total value of everything had to be over like 150, $200 for everything.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I didn't expect. I don't know where that story was going.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I kind of threw him off guard reading a really emotional review on his Amazon, on his documentary.
Yeah.
And it was my review. And he didn't know that while I was going into reading it. So threw him off guard, and he threw me off guard. And it was a nice moment.
That's awesome, though. See,
Yeah,
another person who seems like such a nice guy, like
really is.
giving you that for free, and you guys like got to share that moment, which is
Yeah.
something a lot of people would die to have because people like idolize these wrestlers that mainly you get to like talk to, and other people I know get to talk to on like a daily basis kind of thing. So that is so awesome that he did that for you, and you guys got to share that. I'm jealous, and that's so fucking cool.
Appreciate it.
Oh, of course. So with the your free time when you're not interviewing DDP, Mickey James, RVD, and other very large names, what other hobbies are you doing with your time? I know something that just happened last weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, it's funny that you mentioned hobbies because for me for a long time wrestling was a hobby. Not making content or anything, just like filling my time with it, researching and watching and just whatever. So that was a big thing of mine for a while. But then I needed like hobbies outside of the hobby because it became more than a hobby.
Yeah.
And I really got into photography. Um, I love traveling, so those two kind of go hand in hand. I do a lot of traveling when I have the time, and I bring my camera, and it's one of those things where my mind just I'm a very creative person. I always have been, and for me, photography, like I'll see something, I take the camera out and I just shoot it, and while I'm traveling, so it's a very very refreshing thing for me. I've been labeled as an old soul to a lot of people. I'm a
Okay.
very they call me Grandpa Joe. That's kind of my nickname, my funny nickname with all my friends and family, because I just like old school things like photography, traveling. I have a huge vinyl record collection. I love going to different record stores and finding different things, not looking for anything specific, just kind of whatever catches my eye. And that's another one of my things. So those are kind of the hobbies outside of the hobby.
Grandpa Joe, that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it.
I was, for a long time, I was the only one like in my circle or anybody that really like I knew that was collecting records. And this was like I started in 2013. So
Okay.
before it was a cool thing like it is today.
Yeah.
Um, so everybody's like, "Why are you collecting records? Like those are long gone." And now it's a little different. They outsell CDs today.
Yeah, that's true. I actually,
Yeah.
my record player is underneath all that stuff.
See?
um, so through your searching of vinyls for 10 years at this point, do you have any like favorite vinyls that you found?
Um, Off the top of my head, no, but I can tell you artists that I've found.
Okay.
Original Beatles albums. I was born on January 8th, which is the same birthday as Elvis Presley. So my whole life has really been Elvis influence, you could say. There's always Elvis references along the way. So Elvis is one of my favorite artists of all time. So when I find an Elvis album I didn't have before, I'll grab it. Um, Same with the Beatles. Same with just whatever I see that I know I don't have. And it's funny because I probably have close to 1,000 records, and yeah, no, it's bad. It's sometimes it's like, oh my god, I gotta pull myself back. It's like, relax yourself, Joey. And it's funny because I have so many, and I always remember the ones I have. Like it's just like a internal thing that I
Wow.
have that's like everything's organized. And if you pull out one from they're all very my record collection is all set up as from the date that I got them, so they just kind of go in
Oh.
order. And it's again a weird thing. I can pull out one randomly, or someone can, and I know exactly where I got it, when I got it, and it's like I remember the moment, sort of say. It's like a weird, I don't know. It's a very weird thing, but it's fun. I don't know.
That's awesome. See, doing it by the date you get it, that's smart.
Yeah, I just get it and put it on the shelf, and then the next one put that in front of it, and I just continue as time goes.
Okay. That I will have to remember that for next time I want to organize something, cuz most people do like alphabetical
Yeah.
by artist. Doing it
Yep.
by See, Joey, you're teaching me things I need to know. Thank you.
Of course.
And I feel the old soul thing. Like one of my favorite like artists of all time is Bing Crosby.
There you go.
So
I've heard those.
White Christmas is my favorite
Oh,
movie.
great, great.
And so I plan on doing like a whole music sleeve eventually, and I'm gonna get like an
Right, right.
old school microphone to like represent like that era, like Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland, Bing.
I have one on my desk, an old style microphone, like a statue that I got as a gift years ago, before I even ever thought about podcasting, which is very strange. Maybe foreshadowing there for me, but
Yeah.
one of those old school microphones that you saw like Frank Sinatra used to hold or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot, and I have one on my desk, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I think I actually found one not that long ago. I haven't like hooked it up yet because like I'm just so used to having this one,
Yeah,
and I like having this. So not having this kind of freaks me out, and then just having something small.
yeah, it's comfortable.
Yeah, comfort's not a bad thing with
Yeah,
anything you do. So one of these, this question is always my favorite to ask because I always like hearing the answers people give. Because like I do ask like the same questions to everybody, and then if something catches my attention, we divvy off and then circle back.
yeah.
So if you could have a like table for three dinner kind of thing with any three wrestlers, dead or alive, who are you picking and why?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Let's see. One would be my favorite of all time, Eddie Guerrero.
Mm-hmm.
He would be one. A second one would have to be Triple H,
Okay.
just because inside the ring, outside of the ring, just seems like such an influential, knowledgeable person that I feel like you could learn so much about or from. So we have Eddie Guerrero, we have Triple H. Who would be the third? Hmm. Huh.
Yeah,
I
most
would
people get
probably
stumped on the third one.
I would probably say Shawn Michaels,
Okay.
and it'd be very fun to have DX kind of sitting there together, being serious but being DX at the same time, and then having Eddie Guerrero. Obviously, I think that'd be a good time.
Those three might actually be like the top like three most popular answers. I think The Rock is also one that
Really,
people pick a lot.
that I forgot about The Rock, but I'm sticking with my three. Sticking with my three.
I think Eddie was like number one overall, and I think I've done like 20 of these, so I think maybe like 15 people
Wow.
have picked Eddie Guerrero.
I met him once.
Really?
Yeah, I met him. It had to have been. It was right before he won the WWE Championship, so it must have been late 2003 or early 2004.
Okay.
No, that's when he won it. So late 2003.
Okay.
Um, I had met him at a Kmart. He was doing a signing in a Kmart when I lived in South Florida.
Okay.
And I actually met his wife, Vicky Guerrero, before she was anything. She was kind of standing there on the side, and I knew that was his wife, and not many people there did, is before she was involved in anything.
Yeah.
And she was the sweetest lady. I said hi to her, and she spoke to me, and she was talking to my mom while I was with my dad meeting Eddie Guerrero. It was the craziest thing. But I have an autograph from him, which is it just popped into my head. Eddie Guerrero. He's one of my favorites, if not my favorite of all time.
See that's so nice to have though, and that like you, the memory you have of that, and your mom talking to Vicky, like
Yeah,
that's
like I
awesome.
remember I'm like talking to Eddie, and I look to the right, and like she's off on the side, and I see my mom talking to Vicky, and I'm like, what the hell is happening right now? Like, and she wasn't anything in wrestling yet. It was very very strange, and then all these years later, it's just it's a crazy experience.
It is a crazy world we live in. Everything
Yeah,
wrestling is connected somehow.
yeah.
That just proves it. And Kmart's, they're not even around anymore.
Oh no, that's how long ago it was.
That was that was
Yeah.
like 20 years ago.
About yeah,
Yeah,
actually yeah, yeah,
give or take. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. I,
crazy.
I was 6 years old 20 years ago.
20. I was 10.
Okay, so we're not that far in age. Thank God.
Yeah.
Everyone always calls me a kid because I'm like, I'm only 26. They're like, I'm 35. I'm like, I can't choose this. I'm sorry.
Listen, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I just turned 30 last week, and enjoy being 26. Like whatever anybody says, just enjoy it. For me, it's like when you turn 30, it's real. Like now you're like a real adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to be
It's
an
weird.
adult yet.
I know no one does.
I
No one
mean,
does.
are
I
we
think
even adults?
the secret is if you look at all the biggest names in the world who are adults, they still don't have their shit together.
True.
Nobody does. And I think the secret is to find those things that make you feel like a kid.
Yeah.
That to me is the biggest thing of being adult. Find those things that connect you to who you were as like a kid before you became an adult and kind of life took over. And for me, that's like wrestling is like the top of that list. Like for me, wrestling connects me to my childhood. It connects me to like it's the transition between being a child and being an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing for me.
Well, you saying that leads me like right into my next question, actually. So, do you have any advice besides like don't break the bank and everything we talked about before this? Any advice for people wanting to podcast, or just any life advice in general you want to tell the people who are watching or listening?
Yeah, I mean, in regards to podcasting, I see a lot of people who, uh, some of them are still around and some of them are not. Um, and that's I kind of was able to tell which ones were and which ones were not. And being in our position, like we are in such a valuable position where we get to interview people
Mm-hmm.
and talk to people. Sometimes if it's just someone like me, and then sometimes it's Mickey James or Rob Van Dam.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter who you're talking to. One, treat them all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Treat them like a person. And two, don't just interview them to say you interviewed them, because their time is valuable as well.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go into any interview, make it meaningful, make it bring value to them, but also out of them. It's not just to say, oh, I interviewed uh, Rob Van Dam. It's more than that. And I think that's the biggest thing that stands out between like the different podcasts or in podcasts in general, not just wrestling related, but anybody. Um, just do it for the right reasons. Don't just do it to get clout, to build clout for yourself, to say, oh, I interviewed this person and this person, this one, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if those interviews and those conversations weren't valuable.
Yeah. True.
That that's the biggest thing I could say. In
Yeah.
regards to life advice, be a good person. Be Not everybody's a nice person, but there's also nice people who aren't good people, and there's good people who are, it's just vice versa. So be a good person and be nice. That's
I feel like that's just basic human decency.
You would think it's the simplest thing, but it's the hardest thing for people to do.
Yeah. Oh,
I will never understand it. It's baffling to me.
yeah. I truly don't understand. I mean, my key example is always Twitter and the.
Yeah, it makes no sense. That's like, it's funny you brought up Twitter. Like for me, I try to make my Twitter, or anything I tweet about, like a positive experience where there's so many people who it's so easy to talk about negative stuff or point fingers or make fun of people and make whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more, it's harder, but it's much more meaningful if you can find ways to be positive and like make a good experience for people in general.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but
Exactly. Capital
sometimes
VEC.
keep the opinions to yourself.
Yeah.
I mean,
I see some things on social media where I'm just like, I don't know. Rethink your life choices. Like I don't know.
yeah, I've never understood, especially when, like, because you brought up like interviewing wrestlers and just like treat them like people. Why people, specifically on Twitter, but
Yeah.
everywhere, kind of just like attack these wrestlers as if they aren't real people. Like they're not just some random like character aberration you see on your screen. Like they're legit real people who have real feelings. I've never
Yeah.
understood it.
Yeah. I think it's because people look at as like Twitter or any social media platform, they look at it as almost like a robot is in charge of the account and there's not a real person behind it. Like it's like, oh, I can say whatever I want because they're not going to feel anything and they're never going to find me or they're never going to know who I am or any of that BS that people, you know. And listen, sometimes that could be true. Sometimes, who knows? Maybe Becky Lynch has a manager tweeting for her so she doesn't have to stay off social media. Or maybe it is her, I'm just using her as an example, but it could be, it could be one or the other. So regardless, I mean, that shouldn't be the deciding factor in how you're going to treat someone. You should just be nice, be a good person. It's not rocket science.
It's not. It truly isn't. It's such an easy, simple concept that some
And in
people
most
just refuse
cases, when you are nice and you are a good person, you get way more karma, good karma. You get more in general
Yeah.
if you do those things.
Yeah, I mean, I am 100% a believer in good karma, bad karma, fate.
Yes.
Like, I'm 100% behind that. Everything happens for a reason.
Yep.
And if you choose to be a shitty human being, to other people specifically, then that's gonna bite you 100%.
Yeah, yeah. I learned a really big lesson from Gary V. Um, not sure if you don't know who he is, or if anybody listening doesn't know who he is, but I'm sure everybody knows at this point who Gary V is. Um, but it was more. He taught me this lesson of being empathetic towards people and being more empathetic towards those kind of people who are negative, and the keyboard warriors and all those people who are just mean and negative. Um, but just in general, be more empathetic to those who are mean, because they're portraying how they feel inside.
Yep.
And if you can be empathetic towards those people, sometimes it's the best way to, one, get them a hell away from you, but two, I mean, when you fight fire with fire, it doesn't really end well. So if you're just empathetic towards those people, I think it's in the long run, it's a win for you.
Yeah. I see it like so. Like I was a psychology major at one point. I didn't graduate with that degree, but that's a whole other story. But you realize people act a certain way because that's how they either are treated, and then that's just them acting out, or like you
Yep.
said, like internally, it's everything like that. So that's people have to realize that these people who are being malicious towards others,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily entirely their fault. It's just their reaction to
Yeah.
whatever's going on with them.
Yeah. He made it. Gary V made a very good point, and he said, if someone's gonna write, they're gonna comment on your whatever, your post, your video, whatever, and say something like, "Oh, Joey, you're ugly," or "Joey, your podcast sucks," or die, or whatever crazy
Yeah.
crap people say. Think about what you have to be going through, what that person is going through to do that, to actually go on and write that
Yeah.
with the intention that it's going to get to you. That's sad.
Yeah. That that's a great way to think about it. Like it
That's
is
sad.
sad.
That has to be a miserable way to live. Like when you have to go on and write these things with the intention of, oh, I'm gonna get this person. Like, I don't want to live like that.
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
That's why, like, if I ever get negative hate or anything like that, it's very rare that I do, which luckily for me. But uh, I just don't respond, or I just block or whatever. Usually, just don't respond.
Yeah, and like the block, it's great. It's a great tool to have.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I that sometimes I learned. Sometimes that just uh, motivates people more to get through to you.
Yeah.
So I just don't respond.
How do you feel about people who, I guess, like, quote unquote, brag about being blocked by like wrestlers and stuff like that?
I never. I don't know. You have to backtrack a little bit with what their intention is. Is it just a fan, or is it? I've seen podcasters do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm blocked by, I think I know of one wrestler that people would know, but other than that, I don't think I have any other. And I would never block. I would never brag about it, because, what's the intention of you doing your podcast? Is it just to say you talk to wrestlers, or is there uh, a direction behind it that one day you want to work for WWE, one day you want to get into AEW, one day you want to be a commentator? Bragging about that stuff and how you portray yourself online,
Mm-hmm.
what we've learned will never go away, even if it is deleted.
Yep.
So portray yourself as if you are already in that position. That's a very big thing, and it's a secret that I've really never even told anybody about myself. That the way I portray myself online or when I do interviews, in my mind, I work for WWE. I'm gonna present myself in a way where you would see this on WWE, whether it's on TV or in a backstage, whatever.
Yeah.
Put yourself in that position where you are already where you want to be, and your content will be better. The way you present yourself will be better. The way people see you online will be better. And it's all a branding thing, I think.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Like, That's why, like, for my podcast, I'm more like animated, ridiculous, the things I say just off
Yeah.
the cuff. But for this, I try to be like a little more like professional, even though you don't have to be like suit and tie.
No, no,
But
no, not at all.
yeah, I try to be like a little more focus. I think more so for me, it's a focus issue because I am trying to like when I do my podcast, I have to watch the stream and talk to chat and like do all of that. But with this,
It's more in
it's
the moment.
not streamed. It's just recorded. It's just me and one person, sometimes two if I'm doing another type of show. I write
Yeah,
my notes. Like it's very different
yeah.
from
It's
doing
more
this in
laid
a normal
back than
podcast.
what you're doing with the other stuff.
Oh, 100%. Even though I
Yeah,
feel like I get more nervous for some reason doing this than live streaming stuff. I think it's because I'm talking to different people that I don't talk to every week.
yeah.
Like you and I haven't communicated really ever.
I don't think we have very. If we have, very rarely.
Minimal.
Yeah, yeah,
So like this is like a first time for me and you. So I had to like prepare myself and like get myself ready and be like, okay, it's Joey. He interviews wrestlers. I have to step up my game. But you're
I
just a
appreciate
normal
that.
person. Oh, of course.
Literally, that another thing. That's another piece of advice. Look at everybody as if they're just a normal person. And believe me, I've been I've had people like comment on that about the way I go in my interviews. I've had people like big wrestlers that I've interviewed. I've had it twice already. They say like, "Thank you for treating me like a person because that's what we look for outside of work."
Hmm.
And that to me is like the biggest compliment. Like, and I'll never put that out on social media or anything like that. But that's like even for you, like think about it. You're just going in to talk to a friend, a person. No need to get nervous. No need to feel like oh Mickey James is Mickey James. Like I gotta put on a great face. Like be you and treat them as if you how you would treat anybody else because they will appreciate it more than you know.
Yeah. Well,
That's it's just people.
people. It's just people
Yeah.
being people, right?
Yeah. And I learned that the hard way because I've had people tell me like when I first started, like relax, like I'm just a person. Literally, I'm just a person. Don't look at me as someone you see on TV. I was like nervous and sweating and I'm like stuttering and like forgot everything wanted to ask and
Yeah.
just we're all people.
We're all people, guys. Everyone
Yeah.
listening, we're all people.
Yeah.
So this next question is something I also really like hearing the answer to because the way people explain their answers. So if you could write an autobiography of your life, whether it's your entire life, a certain part, anything about your life, what would be the title and why?
The title. Hmm. That's a good question.
Thank you.
Um, it would probably I don't know what the title would be. It would for some reason the word fight is coming up
Okay.
very clearly. But maybe not fight, but more along the lines of like being in a fight, like uphill battle, like
Okay.
just everything was always from my perspective, everything I've ever done, whether it was school, college, uh, gaining the confidence to make friends and talk to girls because I still am very, very shy
Mm-hmm.
um, in general with people. Um, I feel like everything was always like everyone around me had like smooth sailing and everyone just doing and I'm walking uphill in snow and I'm like, oh, what the hell? Like, so it'd probably be along the lines of like fight or like something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have like an actual a legit title, that's fine. That's
Yeah,
how Krista B was. That's the interview I just did previously. She said
yeah,
she didn't have like a title, but had like an idea of like what it
yeah.
kind of would be. I've had people like explain what they want the cover art to be. Like people take this question and run with it. It's like one of my
Yeah,
favorite ones I love hearing. But
that's in depth. I like that.
I, so that's like bringing it back to the point before. people being people. That's why I'm starting with just podcasters and like my
Yeah.
friends, because yeah, we podcast, but there's that's just surface level. There's stuff deeper than that that not
Yeah.
everyone talks about. Or like I've had people like open up to me, which I always appreciate. People say
Yeah.
I'm easy to talk to, and I'm like, thank you so much, because like I'm a good listener. I
You are.
try.
You are. You're very like very personable. Like very just like you can tell that there's no like we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
It's not like one, two, three, done. Like it's very there's a connection through conversation. So I appreciate that about you, by the way,
Oh, thank you.
because that's it's very rare that you have that today.
I'm taking notes. I'm keeping this all backlogged for myself, for my self confidence later. This is what
Absolutely.
I needed. Thank you.
Of course, of course.
So this episode is gonna come out not tomorrow, but next Monday, because I release them every 2 weeks. So with the next maybe month or so, depending on how far you want to delve information, any future interviews coming up, any future plans you want to tell the people about, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I'm in the midst of kind of changing my content around a little bit.
Okay.
I'm still I still will be doing interviews. Maybe not as often as I have normally done them.
Okay.
I know a lot of podcasters can say that, even myself, it's been more difficult to get guests on,
Mm-hmm.
and that has to do with now the pandemic pretty much being gone,
Yeah.
and everyone is fully back to work. And it sounds bad to say, but they don't really need us as much as they did, because they're doing those interviews on those platforms where they work.
Yeah.
And if they are doing those interviews, they're doing it on news media, Chris Van Vliet and
Yeah.
Renee Paquette, and it is what it is. It should be motivating to us to try to get to that level.
Yeah.
That's what I try to tell people. But I do have an interview coming up in the next couple of weeks. I don't really know the day. I know it's at the end of the month, and I haven't promoted it at all. Haven't said anything. But I will be chatting with Alundra Blaze, Medusa.
That I'm jealous. That's awesome.
Yeah, she has a new book coming out. We'll be talking about that. It's right around the time of the Royal Rumble, I believe. So I'm sure we'll be
Okay.
talking about that, and the Women's Royal Rumble and women's wrestling in general. And I'm very excited to dive into that, because I've had the chance to do that with Mickie James, who's been around and knows everything. And then her being before Mickie James' time,
Yeah.
I think will be a cool connection somewhere. And I
Okay,
always
cool.
love to dive deep. I'm very much into like the history, like talking to the present and then also talking to the past, and kind of seeing where they connect. So I think that'll be a really cool one.
Oh, that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Like I said, Alundra Blaze just alone is just so iconic. I mean,
Yeah.
people think of Alundra Blaze or Medusa, and they're just like title trash immediately. Like that's
Yep.
the first
Title
thing.
in the trash or monster truck. Those are the two things that
The two things.
yeah.
So that's gonna be awesome to talk to her. With changing your style, do you have like any ideas right now how you're gonna switch it up?
So I do. I haven't really set anything set, like really put it set in stone. So I don't want to give too much, but I'll keep it along, like um not doing interviews as often. When I first started my podcast, it was mainly me sitting down once a week, sometimes more, talking about what I saw and what I thought about wrestling that week.
Okay.
And then it got to the point where I was like, well, this is what everyone's doing. How do I stand out? And then someone offered me the opportunity to do interviews, which I had never even thought about, which is crazy to think about, but it was never an option. I was never like, oh, I want to interview wrestlers. It was more like, how do I talk about wrestling or make it interesting?
Yeah.
Then I started doing interviews, and I switched more to interviews, and I saw that was working better. The numbers were higher, so I'll just stop doing the other stuff, because why am I going to work so much harder when I don't have to?
Yep.
Work smarter, not harder. That's another thing.
There we go.
Started doing interviews, and I mean, I was cranking out interviews, especially during the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
One or two a week, and they weren't even like they were like Rob Van Dam, and then it was like the Hurricane Gregory Helms, and then it was Ryback, and then I was like, I don't know what the hell is happening, but I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna ride this momentum. Eric Bischoff, I think I did Eric Bischoff, DDP, Jeff Jarrett in a matter of like 3 weeks.
Oh my god.
It was like one a week I was doing, and sometimes I remember one day I interviewed Nick Aldis in the morning. Later in the day, I interviewed Moose, and then I interviewed later that day Alicia too. And that was like for I was doing one, putting out one a week, and it was three a week. It was half the month, more than half the month was already set.
Jesus.
So, and now it's like it's very difficult to get the interviews. You have to have, honestly, you have to be connected to different companies, whatnot, who will be willing to give you interviews. So with all that said, I'm kind of going away from the interviews, but I'm still doing them. I want to focus more on creating wrestling based content, tying it into what I see from my favorite YouTubers and making it wrestling based. So if it's going to the gym and having a friend of mine, Enzo Amore, the real one, teach me his workouts in the gym and kind of do a short interview kind of thing in between.
Yeah.
That's what it will be, opposed to doing a Zoom call with him or anybody else. So it's going to be a different style, more entertaining.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm trying to go with it. The more the entertainment route. I don't know if you've seen me on TikTok at all, but a lot of my TikTok stuff, you wouldn't even know that's connected to what you see on Twitter or anything else. That's a whole different ball game. But I'm going more towards that kind of content where I'll be making videos, for example, like these are 5 people who I think are going to win the Royal Rumble, both men's and women. And I think that's more interesting than just anything else. I think that's, I don't know, it's a different, like I said, different style, but more under the line of wrestling based content. Again, throwing interviews in there, throwing all the other stuff I've been doing before that, just adding more to the resume, sort of say.
That's such a smart and cool idea, though. Like, just doing a normal task, but then adding a wrestler on top of that, and like talking with them, and like you said, like making an interview, but doing it's like talk shows.
Yeah.
Basically, like they're always like cooking something, and while they're cooking, they're like having a conversation, be like, "Oh, well, this came out, and how's that?" And then they just damn it, Joey, that's so smart. I can't wait to see this.
I do a lot of research on the back end, and it's a thing that it's another like hobby of mine for some reason. It's a weird hobby, but it ties into what I do with my podcast. I'm very much into studying how things work. So how does YouTube work? How does TikTok work? How does Instagram work? And I pride myself on that because my numbers are pretty good on all platforms. I think on TikTok, I'm almost at like 30K followers.
Wow.
And that's just that's all of 2022, just focusing on TikTok.
Wow.
So I like to study like how these work and how you can use them to your advantage. I study the back end work, the analytics, down to the nitty gritty of like what time should I be posting, how long the content should be, like very much into that. Plus, it's kind of part of my day job in marketing.
Okay.
But I throw it into my other stuff as well. But it's important. I know a lot of people who just like they'll throw together a video, doesn't like it'll be like 3 hours long, or it'll be like 15 minutes or 5 minutes, and they'll post it whenever they get the chance, and it flops. But there's reasons why it's flopping. Listen, sometimes it might be bad content. People hate that. I know there's a lot of videos that I've done where I'm like, why is it not doing well? And I think to myself, maybe it's not good. You know, maybe it just didn't work. It wasn't whatever. But if you look at this kind of stuff, you can tell, oh, well, if I post at 5 p.m. on YouTube, there's more people on that will watch it opposed to 10 a.m. Think about what your audience is typically you.
Yeah.
What are they doing at certain times of the day? What time when you wake up in the morning, what do you when do you go on social media? Is it after you eat breakfast? Is it the first thing you do? When do you watch your videos? Or when are people on talking about wrestling? Is it 7 a.m. on Monday morning, or is it 7:30 p.m. right before Monday Night Raw?
Oh my god, this is making me rethink everything I'm doing.
And it did for me too. It's like it's the back end stuff that you don't see,
Yeah.
but you have to put the time into figure like to research it. It almost becomes part a new department of the job already.
Yeah.
So all of this is and you to make it to make it successful, you have to do these things, regardless of what it is. If it's a podcast or if you're whatever you're doing, there's always extra work that needs to be done in order to make it successful.
Yeah, see, now I'm like rethinking a bunch of it because I always have, for some reason, I don't even know why I started doing it like this, but when I broke off and started doing ShElite, I started just posting everything at like 7 a.m. on Friday morning for some reason. I don't know why 7. A
Yeah.
Friday because we do our shows typically Thursday nights.
Yeah.
And I've never like sat down and like thought about it. Again, I still don't even know why 7 a.m. Because I guess in my mind, oh, people are like maybe going to work and they
Yeah.
would listen. Oh, I have so much to think about
Go in, go into whatever account. If it's YouTube, YouTube's pretty good with that. Look at your analytics. It will literally show you graphs, like different bars. When your audience, the people that watch and like and engage with your content on YouTube,
now. Mm-hmm.
what times of the day they're most engaged. It's different for everybody. But if you look at that, you'll see like, oh, you'll be like, I'm posting at 7 a.m., but people are most engaged at like 3:30, like throughout the week. Every day is different. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot. But once you get it, you're like, it's golden.
I hope
You're golden.
I hope every podcaster and anyone who's listening and watching this just took a notebook's worth of notes for that.
Oh, I think I just threw people off. They just looked at it, head spinning. Like I don't know what the hell is happening. And then there's some people who are like, "That's what I've been waiting to hear." Like that's why is something not working? That's the next step that I have to go.
I mean, that even like ties into like advice stuff too, like figuring out when to post. I look at analytics and numbers and stuff a lot just because
Yeah,
I am very much like, why aren't my numbers what like I'm setting higher expectations for myself, but I always ask myself, why are they not doing as well as I think they should be? And
yeah,
then it's like reevaluating. All right, well, what did we talk about on the show? What is and I know thumbnails are a big thing too.
yeah. Telling you, there's a lot. Fun fact: YouTube is actually going away from thumbnails. Where if you go look on certain YouTube videos now, um, they are just jumping. Like if you hover over a video, instead of seeing the thumbnail, it'll just start playing the video. So the key is whatever you were going to put. And this is some great advice I'm going to give you. I found and it's like a hidden hack. Whatever you're going to do in your thumbnail,
Mm-hmm.
if it's going to be words, this video is about wrestling, whatever. That needs to be the first part of your video.
Oh my god! It
Because
makes so
when it
much
plays
sense.
now, when it starts playing now, that's what they'll see. Because they're going away from thumbnails. YouTube is trying to do what TikTok is doing.
Yeah,
TikTok is trying to do what YouTube is doing.
it's
So yes.
a
So if you
multiple
see
time.
right now on YouTube, the biggest thing going there is shorts,
Yeah,
which are TikToks.
yeah. Oh my god.
And TikTok is going more of the SEO route where certain words you use are being ranked, and your video will most likely have a higher chance of going viral
Mm-hmm.
if you have specific big keywords in there.
Jesus.
So everyone just overlapping each other. But I'm telling you, there's videos you can watch that tells you this stuff, articles that will tell you can read. It's time consuming, but this is where it comes down to, are you doing your podcast, not you, but I'm saying in general,
Yeah.
are you doing your podcast for fun, or are you doing it to create a future for yourself in this industry where you could be profitable and make it into a business and become Chris Van Vliet or Renee Paquette doing what you're doing? If it's just for fun, do it for fun. But for me personally, I'm trying to build it into something where I could have a career in it.
Yeah.
There's different steps you have to take.
Yeah. I'm. Yeah. Okay. I got a lot to think about. I got a lot. There's a lot rattling in the brain right now. I gotta.
I'm telling you, sometimes I tell people some of this stuff sometimes, and like a small part of what I just said to you, and they're like, like they don't even know what's happening.
I mean, thankfully, I understand everything you're saying, and so I have a good grasp on it. It's just the executing it part is what I'll have to like actually do.
Yeah, it's time consuming. It really is time consuming. Like my day is I'm working 8 a.m. I get off at 5, and then I kind of take some time for myself, and like between watching wrestling every freaking day of the week and live tweeting that stuff for 2 or 3 hours, I'm doing this stuff, and my day ends at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Like it's a lot, but are you willing to work for your dream, or are you willing to just settle?
Damn. That alone, that's a quote. I can see it on like the Google images. Pretty background. That's what that is.
And either option, that's the best thing about that. Either option is the best option for you. Whatever you pick, that's the best option for you. Whether it's if you are comfortable doing what you're doing and you love what you're doing, I will be the first person in the line to pat you on the back and say, keep freaking doing it. Mm-hmm. But if it's the opposite way, it's the same thing. Whatever works for you is the best option.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I appreciate you bestowing your wisdom upon the people, giving them the inside scoop here.
Just tell me to shut up when you need me to shut up. That's all.
No, I would never. Listen, this is good stuff.
Bring the controversy. Shut up, Joey.
Well, now I turn the mic over to you. I always let people ask me anything they want to know about me. I've always said I'm an open book. If you want to know life, podcasting, whatever you want to know, I will answer.
All right, well, let's see here. Well, let me start with this. You're very personable, like communicating. Like you're just a person, and it's very easy to talk to you, and like we converse. It's not like you're reading a question that you wrote, and after I answer, that question's dead. On to the next. Like there's conversation there. How would you describe yourself? Are you an introvert? Are you extrovert? Are you somewhere in the middle? Do you like going out every weekend and being friends with a bunch of people, or are you like, I have like 5 good friends and I kind of just hang out and do whatever?
I would definitely say I'm a little bit in between. If you get to know me, I open up more. I definitely don't like going out every, because like there's times where I'm just like I can't stand people, especially like just out. Like I did a bar crawl last night.
There you go.
it was me and my best friend, and then a bunch of people I didn't know, but like the two of us stuck together, hung out, and did everything. So I do have like a core group of friends, real life and Twitter wise, which I've actually had the privilege of meeting the majority of them in real life because pandemic is over. So I've gone to Chicago, met the majority of them, Vegas for SummerSlam, and that was my first time going out there. So I would say I'm definitely like a little bit of both. I don't know where this came from with the camera. I don't like public speaking. I was forced to take it in college, and I was like shaking up there. Had my note cards. I don't like I get stage fright, but I was in chorus for 10 years, and I don't even understand me half the time.
I was a student where I would ask the teacher, could I present like after class just to you? Like I literally used to ask that. I hated anything to do with speaking in public.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another piece of advice. I don't know how these keep coming up. I'm like a freaking I don't know where it's coming from. But if you're, and this goes for podcasting as well, if you are confident, if you know the content you're going to be talking about, if you know wrestling, if you know, if you're going to go into an interview with Mickey James and you know everything about Mickey James, there's no need to not be confident. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you know what you're talking about, you're golden.
Yeah.
That's for public speaking. That's for anything. Like, I remember in school, I would, like, my hands are sweating. I don't know what's happening. I forget everything I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I'm just studying this material to say that I don't really know it in my soul.
Mm-hmm.
But I can sit and talk for 3 hours to Rob Van Dam while he's lighting up a joint and just talk about anything under the sun that comes to mind. Because I know about wrestling, I know about him. So if you're confident in what you're talking about, that fright, that stage fright, or that public speaking goes away.
Good to know. I mean, yeah. Now that I think about it, that is true. Because like the public speaking class I had to take, we had to do like the history of something, and I love music. Like I was telling you before, like I want to do a music sleeve and all of this stuff. So I did like the history of music festivals. So I like did some research, but like I've also been to Warped Tour, and so like I had like a little bit of knowledge from that. So it definitely helped. I wasn't as nervous as like the ones I had to just pick a topic, study it, and not really care about it.
I get it. Here's another question for you. What is it about, like, doing this show, for example? Because you have ShElite, you talk about wrestling, whatnot. Mm-hmm. What are you looking for by doing this show? Like you're obviously interested in how people work and how their minds work.
Mm-hmm.
You said you were a psych major.
Yeah.
What is that what it is? You like the psychology of like digging deep, like, because I'm a very, very, like, I love to, like, surface level is here and I'm like somewhere like deep in the dark. We're talking about things that people are just like, they can't comprehend, like it makes no sense, but for some reason, like, people like you or I, very, very, like, that's more comfortable than being surface level.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I loved having deep conversation about emotions and feelings and why things happen and different things like that. So is that kind of where your mind goes as to why you do this show, or kind of where this came from?
A little bit, yeah. So I was a psych major, but I graduated with a social work degree. So very similar courses. That's kind of why I chose social work after the fact. And I think that's also why I decided to call this Inside the Mind of, because like that's why I'm starting with podcasters too, because I'm also starting with my friends, because like if I just do this with strangers at first, I would be this show wouldn't even be happening anymore. So I pick people that I already have a connection with, and then we build on that connection and we talk for like an hour or whatever, and then like moving on to more people that I would like to interact with more or want to get to know more in some type of way. So I think it is kind of something like that, where I want to know more so like what goes on in people's heads that maybe they don't want to talk about. And like I said, people open up to me because I don't know, maybe it is the social work degree in me where I'm just like good at...
You know how people work.
Yeah.
You know how people work. And I'm very similar in that sense, where I love having these type of conversations. Like, I can go for hours and just, like, I remember sometimes I'll have conversations with friends and just go on for hours. I remember I don't know, you know Kenny for your thoughts.
I do, yes.
Mr. Kenny. First time I met him, I asked him to be on my show, I was doing like a SummerSlam preview show, and I wanted to have a few different, this was 2020.
Okay.
I just met him. We only had DM'd. First time interacting on Zoom. And I said, okay, I only need you for like 25, 30 minutes. Like, we'll just go over like the matches, whatever, we'll talk. That Zoom call went on for almost 4 hours.
I believe it.
We talked about everything under the sun, different books, different stuff. There was one time I was on with him. Ding, ding, ding. We're hitting him now. Mr. Ritter, he's here. Matt Ritter, Kyle, Apron Bump.
Yep.
4 of us were on a Zoom call, I think, for like 3.5 hours.
That
The wrestling
yep.
only talked for like one.
Yeah, knowing the three of them, that does not surprise me in the least bit.
Let me tell you, I've met a lot of people like through podcasting.
Yeah,
Those 3 guys, top tier. Those like
100%.
they're just the coolest guys. Like just all so different.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's crazy how different they are. Um, but like when we sit and talk, like we haven't done it in a long time, but when we do, oh my god, it's like sitting with the bros at like an outback, just like hanging out, watching sports, just talking. Like it's the coolest.
Specifically an Outback.
I don't know. I'm just throwing out something that maybe everybody knows. I'm from South Florida, so we have things like Flanagan's there. I don't know if you're familiar with that, or
Nope.
it's kind of like a outback type thing.
Okay, yeah, I'm Pittsburgh.
A burger,
So.
a sports burger plate, a sports bar. Oh my Jesus, I can't speak today. Sports bar that has burgers and different things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a Pittsburgh girl, so
There
I'm
you go.
Permanis. That's most people know us for. So Permanis.
PA. Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah. Let me see. Anything else? What I could ask you? So I got about why you do the show.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite thing about people? Like what's your favorite part to learn about people? Like you said, you like to talk like what's in their minds and
Mm-hmm.
what they're going through. Sort of say, what's your favorite thing to like touch on when you're doing that?
Um. uh, So that is a really good question. I don't think I've ever like sat and thought about it. I guess I like to know not even like why people how like why are people the way they are because that's like the whole gist of this,
Yeah,
but it's more so I like when people talk about things that are important to them.
yeah.
So for a lot
Kind
of
of break
people,
those walls down.
exactly, so like a lot of people it is their podcast. That's when I was just like, well, how did you started, do you have your favorite episode? And then so like I always do like podcast questions into like more personable questions, like I mix it up and
Yeah,
try and get a little bit of everything in these interviews. And like I call them interviews, but they're just conversations.
yeah.
Really. Interviews are the professional term, I guess. And I'm far from it 98% of the time, not on this show. If you've seen me on other shows, you know.
Let me tell you, I have done. I'm one person that does not say no to people asking me to come on their show, whether it's to talk about me or talk about wrestling. I always say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you have 200 followers, you have 20,000 followers, you have 200. I don't care. I say yes. I just like to meet people and talk. And this has been one of my favorite ones I've ever done. I'm not just saying that because I'm on here. I'm being completely serious with you. Like I've had people on. It's like, what's your favorite interview you've done? How did you get it? What did? Tell me what you did to get these people.
Mm,
I'm like,
yeah.
well, I see my value, but
Yeah.
it's way different. Like I don't know. I enjoy this type of setting, like just talking, getting to know somebody, vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. So I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, of course. Man, I don't do well with compliments, so like you're giving me a lot of compliments. I'm just like, I don't know what to do with my hands. What do I do here? I'm freaking out.
It's all good. It's all good.
I was gonna say something too. Fuck. What was I gonna say? I don't
It'll
know.
come to you.
I know it'll come to me like it's gonna come to me like 3 days later. I'm just gonna be sitting here and just be like, oh, that's what I wanted to say. Um, fuck. What was it? Oh, I gotta like rack my brain. What were we just
Was it
talking
in
about?
regards to wrestling? Was it in regards to real life crap? Was it
Oh, it was just like with people asking you to be on podcasts and stuff. My friends have deemed me the hardest working woman in podcasting for some reason because I do my show once a week. This every once in a while. It was on a hiatus for a while because like the holidays.
yeah.
At one point I was doing another show. I'm always on Matt's show. I always hop on my other friends' shows. I just like doing podcasts. I just like talking to people. Nine times
Yeah.
out of 10, it is about wrestling. But we're doing one tonight. Actually, it's about like the Conjuring universe, and like I love the Conjuring universe.
See,
So it's
that's why
something
Ritter and
else.
I get along because we love horror movies.
Yeah. So like, Matt is again. You're welcome, Matt. I
Ding!
I'll get yelled at later about
You
this,
need
but
you
that's
need like a
okay.
Ritter board in a corner. How many times he's mentioned, the number just keeps going up.
Oh, the number would be too high.
It'll
the,
hit
the,
his ego too.
yeah, that's another thing. He's always just like, "You're boosting my ego. Please stop." So
Yeah,
sorry, Matt. You're
love
welcome.
that dude.
Um, but like I've like met his family. His wife and I were like best friends. I interviewed her
Well,
for
that's
this.
awesome. That's
Um,
awesome.
it's like those are the people like I got to meet in Chicago. Like him, Vince, Justin from Getcho, and like the Getcho boys. It's like I
I
got
think I
to
saw
meet
a
all them.
photo. You guys, I think I saw a photo of you guys all together.
Yeah, our little group chat of podcasters, our little family. But like
I love it.
it's just stuff like that, and to bring it back onto the track, talking about anything. I just like if it's especially if it's something I like or am passionate about.
Yeah.
Um, like our friend Reek from like Young Kings and the Havoc Hour, he got on my case because I'd never seen Star Wars,
Mm.
and that's like his favorite franchise. I was just like, okay, well, I'll watch them. But so what we did is I would watch three and then we do a podcast, and then I'd watch the
Got it.
next three and we do a so
That's pretty cool.
yeah, I watched a lot of movies, like all of the Friday the 13th, all the Halloweens, all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, and we turned them into podcasts after the fact.
Very cool.
So it's just stuff like that I like doing because it's not all about wrestling. Like wrestling's what brought 98% of us together,
Yeah.
but we have other interests outside of it, which is also why I do this, is to get to know what else people like to do, what else they like to talk about. Like, do you like to video game? Do you like to read? Oh, I
Yeah.
like to read. I like to play video games. Like it's all connected somehow.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I like that. You just triggered something in my head too. Another back to the way beginning. Another hobby of mine. I love to write.
Okay.
I went to school for journalism. And actually, I have two books out that are published now. Um, yeah, one was 2021, and the other one was 2022. And they're more like not motivational content, but more like motivational poetry
Okay.
type stuff, where it's more uplifting and it's I don't know that's another hobby of mine as well.
Yeah, I same thing. I graduated with a creative writing minor from school, so then
You get it.
I, I get it. I actually started doing a little bit of writing for just like wrestling stuff I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I started one. I'm gonna make it kind of like a series. I only was motivated like the first four, and I kind of got. I'm trying, but it's like wrestling soulmates. Like I asked people online, like if you think of wrestling soulmates, who do you think of? And like I had them say like Ray and Eddie, Cena Edge, like stuff like that. So like
That's really interesting.
I'm doing history on like the first matches between these people and interactions between their careers, and like I have like a Google Doc with like bullet
That's
points.
something that I would read or watch.
I can
I
send you
love
the
that kind of
first
stuff.
one. The first one is done. I can send you that one.
I love that. I love that kind of stuff. Like that's what kind of what we were talking about before. What makes you different than everybody else?
Yeah.
That right there is something specific, you know?
Yeah, that's like the first one I put like all of my energy into. I have like a few other ones. Like I did a piece on Rhea Ripley because I fucking love Rhea Ripley. She's like one of my favorite people right now.
Mommy is the best.
You don't gotta tell me, Joe. I get it. I
I
have.
see that. I see that Royal Rumble match coming up real quick. I think she got it
If
in the
she
bag.
doesn't, I don't. I'm gonna be distraught. Personally, I'm gonna be emotional.
It better not. I'm okay with Dana Brooke winning the Royal Rumble. It better not be Ronda Rousey. So
Thank you. Thank you.
anyone but Ronda. I love Ronda. I think she is doing such a great job with what she's doing. Her in-ring skills can get a little better, but besides the point, somebody else.
I have said on numerous occasions that exact phrase, anyone but Rhonda, for
Yeah.
anything. So
See,
I
we're saying
understand.
anyone but Rhonda and Ritter. I know, and it's anyone but Riddle. So I know.
See, yeah, it's we're all here. We're all in the same
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
All right, Joey. Is there anything else you want to talk to me about? Ask me, talk about at all?
I don't know. Anything that you want to talk to me about? I don't know.
On
I could talk about anything. So
you're like
I'm
we
an
can
open
just keep
book.
going.
Yeah, no, I'm whatever you need.
It's nothing off the top of my head. Um, yeah, nothing's coming to my mind. We may just have to revisit this at another time. Who knows?
Whenever you need, let me know. I'll make the time.
So
Yeah.
nice, thank you. First of all, thank you again for doing this. I sincerely appreciate it. But you have to tell the
Absolutely.
people where they can find you and your interviews and your content. Come on
I'm
now.
right here. No, no, I again, I appreciate you reaching out and having me on. And again, I've seen so many people do this before, and excited that I get to be added to the list. So I'm thankful that you asked me to be on.
Of course.
Uh, Everybody listening and watching, you can search the Angle Podcast. The social media handles are a little different. They're at the Angle Radio because the Angle Podcast is taken, but at the Angle Radio, at the Angle Podcast, anywhere on social media, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, wherever, all different types of content, interviews, wrestling content. That's kind of what I label it, just wrestling content. So anywhere else, you can find that. And again, I appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Obviously, I gotta plug myself here. You can follow me on Twitter at KatieWrestling13. The link to I'm about to take out things ShElite Showcase, twitch.tv/ShElite Showcase. Typically Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern is when we go live. YouTube.com/ShElite Showcase. I say watch the videos because they're way more entertaining because I'm Italian and I talk with my hands, so you can always see
Oh, me
that.
too.
Oh, every time.
Yeah.
Forget
Yeah.
about it. Tony D.
Forget about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, if you want to just listen, which I also appreciate. And then ShElite's the brand and the weekly show. This that you're listening and watching to, Inside the Mind of, my interview series, my baby, my pride and joy. Those are the main shows I'm going to be personally focusing on more. There are other shows that are up on the channel if you want to go check those out. My co-host Savannah has 2 shows. We got a lot going on over here.
There's a lot. You got a whole block of stuff.
That's why my friends say I do too much because I have too many shows. Allegedly too many shows.
There's never enough.
That's what I'm saying. There's never enough content out there.
If you love it, there's never enough.
See, Joey gets it, and
Get
Joey gets it. Then that's all that matters. All right, Joey. Well, thank you again so much for doing this with me. For everyone
Absolutely.
watching and listening, thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.